Hello, this is Keith with the National Honey Board, and for today's Hive Sessions, we're going to be talking about what food and beverage manufacturers want from their honey supplier. So as you know, I spend a good part of my time talking to food and beverage manufacturers, both large and small, about honey, and they ask me quite a few questions, as you can imagine, and I've put together kind of their main concerns, main questions they have for me. So whenever you go talk to these food and beverage manufacturers about selling your honey to them, you'll be better prepared to answer any questions they may have. So the first question we always get is about value. So you have to be prepared to make the case for the value of honey. As we know, honey has a higher price point than most any other sweetener out there, especially if you consider it to something like cane sugar. It's quite a bit more expensive. So whenever you go talk to a food and beverage manufacturer that's not using honey, you have to be prepared to show why honey is such a valuable ingredient that consumers are willing to spend more for a product with honey in it. There's four ways you can do this. The first one is consumer surveys. There's quite a few out there. This is one great example from Mintel, where they asked consumers which sweetener is most appealing. Honey came out way ahead at number one, and which sweetener is more natural. Again, honey came out leaps and bounds above the competition. Another way to make the value case is familiarity. This is a big one, as there's a lot of unfamiliar ingredients out there in the food and beverage industry. And honey is this great thing that consumers are just attracted to. Most all of them have it in their pantries at home. So seeing it in a food product is something they welcome. All natural is another thing. This is a all natural sweetener. And as you can see from this chart right here, it's an all natural sweetener that consumers rank higher than all other sweeteners in terms of whether they believe it is a natural sweetener. And then finally, honeybees. Everybody loves honeybees. Everybody knows the importance of honeybees. So don't kind of hesitate to talk about the importance of supporting the honey industry, which is going to help us keep healthier bees by using honey. So make sure to tell that whole story. The number two thing that you're going to have to be prepared for is to come to food and beverage manufacturers with new ideas. We did a study that last year of R&D professionals at large food and beverage manufacturers, and 59% of them agreed with the statement, "I like trying or using new innovative sweetener." This is one of our kind of challenging points whenever we go to food and beverage manufacturers, is a lot of them just want to use the latest and greatest ingredients so they can appear to be innovative. We have to be prepared as an industry to combat that, to talk about ways that honey can be innovative. How you can do this is talk about new product ideas, show them some really new and innovative things out there, such as these Vienna chickpea snacks that are honey roasted. It's a way that you can still be innovative, but use a familiar ingredient. And then on the beverage side, you can talk about how you can pair a familiar ingredient such as honey with an innovative on-trend ingredient such as turmeric to provide a win-win for customers. Something provides a sweet flavor as well as something that is very marketable and that consumers want. The third thing that kind of food and beverage manufacturers want from their ingredient suppliers, particularly their honey suppliers, is some kind of story. With the kind of full embrace of e-commerce out in the marketplace right now, competition has gone through the roof. Retail used to be a pretty big barrier about how many food or beverage products could go on the marketplace. But now that kind of anybody can put up an e-commerce store and sell their products, we're seeing countless numbers of brands. So food manufacturers are trying harder and harder to distinguish their products. And a lot of this is through storytelling about the ingredients in their products or sort of the goal of their products. This is just an example. This was from a recent survey that just came out from the International Food Information Council. This is part of their yearly 2023 Food and Health Survey. And 60% of consumers say social media makes them make healthier food choices. So this is something the honey industry can take advantage of because honeybees and honey play very well on social media. So whenever food and beverage manufacturer would use honey in their product, they have this extra kind of ability to position it as a great story by leaning on heavy honey iconography. We also see that 34% of consumers rate environmental sustainability as a significant purchase driver. And this is another great way that the honey industry can tell its story, to talk about how honeybees not only create this honey, but they're also pollinating and really supplying the food industry with so many ingredients, some of the favorite things that people eat. The fourth thing that honey suppliers or that food and beverage manufacturers are going to want from their honey supplier is quality assurance. This is kind of standard, but it's something that's becoming more important due to recent news. We have not only synthetic honey makers talking about negatively about the honeybee industry, but we also have news from overseas about various food fraud cases and adulteration cases. So even though a lot of those problems haven't come to the United States, it's something that food and beverage manufacturers are starting to ask more and more about. So be prepared to talk about not only your food safety practices, but also the purity of honey, the traceability and source of origin you can provide, as well as any testing you can provide. All these things will help assure food and beverage manufacturers that whenever they buy honey, it is a pure substance. And then the last thing is supply stability. This is something that really surprised me because food manufacturers never asked me personally about the sustainability of the honey supply, if there's a stability issue. But whenever we did our food and beverage manufacturers survey, 38% of those polled said stability of supply is the top decision criteria when choosing sweeteners. Now, that's pretty large number. And then whenever we looked at what are the largest barriers of obstacles for more food and beverage manufacturers to use honey, availability came up as number one, which was quite surprising to me. So whether it's a perceived barrier or a real barrier, there's food and beverage manufacturers that are out there saying that the reason they're not using more honey is its availability. So that's definitely something that we as an industry need to go out and constantly reassure food and beverage manufacturers that there is that stability of supply. So those are 5 things that food and beverage manufacturers are going to want to know from their honey suppliers. If you have any feedback or comments or additional questions you get asked a lot that we can cover on a future Hive session, email me at keith@honey.com.